House of the Dragon Season 2 Episode 7 The Red Sowing. This episode has a lot of issues. Before I will spend a lot of time complaining about the problems of this episode, however, I do want to highlight the few things that I enjoyed. I continue to really like what they're doing with Larys this season. I especially like the scene he has with Aegon, where he helps him regaining his strength. It's great setup for what's to come, and it adds more depth to Larys and his disability. On that note, I definitely recommend watching Quinn DGM's fantastic video on disabilities in the Song of Ice and Fire. Fantastic video, and House of the Dragon did a great job here. I also really enjoyed the scene between Larys and Jasper Wild. Focusing more on smaller characters like the Iron Rod just helps in making the show feel bigger. Game of Thrones did a fantastic job in making you care about a variety of characters, and House of the Dragon really stepped up its game in Season 2. The slower pace is great because it allows the show to take its time in building up the secondary characters. Adam, Alan, Hugh Hammer, and more all entered the story this season, and they're all fully established now, which will add more meaning to the battles and the overall drama in general. I don't buy Larys not knowing that Adam of Hole claims sea smoke at all, by the way. I think he knows, and I'm curious to find out to what extent he plans on using this knowledge. Speaking of Adam, I really enjoyed his scene with Rhaenyra at the beginning of this episode. While our questions about Laenor will likely never be answered now, and that definitely doesn't make sense, I like that Adam of Hole's ability to claim sea smoke is still kept ambiguously. Marilda of Hole could very well be a dragon seed herself, but I like the fact that she doesn't show up with silver hair to straight up tell us that yes, she is a dragon seed. The uncertainty of these events is one of the few aspects I genuinely really like about Fire and Blood, and I don't need House of the Dragon to take a clear, definitive stance on every choice the book presents. They should do this more often, in my opinion. Another scene, or more scenes I liked, are the ones of Corlys and his sons. Sure, again, he should have talked to Rhaenyra about Laenor yet, but I enjoy the hypocrisy of him finally, yet slowly, stepping up as a father, now that both of his bastard sons came up in the world. The scene between Viserys and Daemon was cool, though I would have been fine with the more open-ended conclusion episode 6 represented. It's a bit on the nose, but I love Paddy Considine's Viserys, so no complaints from me here. Viserys says, "You've always wanted it, Daemon. Do you want it still?" And I imagine that episode 8 will have him cast his ambitions aside. The exploration of Daemon's character is the highlight of the season for me personally. Let's hope they don't mess it up at the very end. They really have to stick the landing, and I'm confident that they will. Last but not least, Hugh Hammer claiming Vermithor was very well done. It looked great and left nothing to be desired in terms of the portrayal of their bond. House of the Dragon's Hugh is Sarah Targaryen's son, and it's sweet irony that her son now gets to ride her father's dragon. Silverwing looked amazing too, and is probably my favorite design for a dragon in the show. From a technical standpoint, this is a new high for the show. It's a great achievement, and the people who made this possible deserve all the awards in the world. Rhaenyra definitely isn't a saint anymore either, which is positive too. Now, sadly, and in my opinion, for the very first time in the show, the bad heavily outweighs the good in this episode. I've watched it twice now, and I have no desire to do it again anytime soon. Let's start with the smaller issues. Elinda Massey sneaking around, trying not to get caught while wearing a red dress is certainly a choice, but her openly wearing the sigil of House Massey, a house that is publicly sworn to Queen Rhaenyra, in the capital which is ruled by her enemy, is wild. Mind you, this is all at a time of war, after the Red Keep was infiltrated and the heir to the Iron Throne was assassinated. Sure, you could make the argument that she wears the sigil of her house so people actually trust her, but for what exactly was Diana there then, if not to confirm and spread Rhaenyra's message? Next up, we have Daemon being bossed around and publicly insulted by all the Riverlords to see by a 12-year-old. Okay then. Being bold and showing strength is one thing, but straight up telling a Targaryen prince that he dishonored the crown is a bit much. Yes, Daemon needed to rectify this wrong, but I would have loved to see him rectifying it himself instead of being coerced into doing it. It's not the worst thing, and I'm all for Daemon getting shit after everything he's done, but I would have still preferred to have him deal with it himself. Daemon's character exploration has been phenomenal this season, so why not use it here as an example of the progress and development his character made. I feel like this was just such a wasted opportunity. This is and should be no redemption arc for Daemon, don't get me wrong, which is exactly why him killing Willem Blackwood on his own would have made perfect sense. It's like a relapse, like a Daemon of old, and he would have the chance to reflect before he manages the army of the Riverlords. Again, I'm curious to see where this all ends now in episode 8. This was by far my favorite storyline of the entire show so far, so I hope they get this right. If you've been watching my stuff, then you'll know that I always judge things when we have seen everything. Well, we had our conclusion to this season's Vale storyline in this episode, and what exactly was the point of any of Jane Arryn's scenes? How did we skip over Jace's time at Winterfell, and instead had to endure whatever it was they tried to tell us with these scenes at the Eyrie? It honestly feels, again, like wasted screen time, and I don't even care that the sheep stealer change breaks the lore because dragons supposedly don't roam around looking for food. George R. R. Martin had Drogon roaming around the Dothraki Sea, so whatever, and fine. If the writers felt the need to change things with sheep stealer and nettles, then why bother to stay faithful by having Rhaenyra at the Vale at all? If you change things, at least compensate in a way that's entertaining, or at least bother introducing us to the actual character of Jane Arryn. Instead of whatever this was, we could have had Jace resolve the issues in the Vale by himself, so he actually has something interesting to do. Instead of watching Jane and Rhaenyra having these random 2-minute scenes, we could have seen Jace's diplomacy arc coming into play. Now that I think of it, why not have him stay at Winterfell for the entire season? That would have benefited his character a lot, I think, especially if you're not going to have him be involved in the Dragon Seeds plot anyways, because yes, Jace now has a problem with bastards claiming dragons. Cool concept, but in my opinion, pretty much just out of the blue. I feel like that would have made sense if they chose to explore his character more. I get that they were trying to explore his feelings, emphasizing what it's like being a bastard and all. The actor even delivers a great performance here. But why bother showing him coming up with the Dragon Seeds plot if he is going to revolt 2 episodes later anyway? Just have him react to this news in Winterfell, and if you want to focus on the bastard aspect of it, let him bond over this with Sarah Snow. I personally would have preferred that, but I guess that could just be me. Some people might be happy that Jace gets to do something interesting after all. I'm just baffled at the amount of wasted potential in this episode and in this season. Last but not least, we of course have our nonsensical Marvel-esque showdown at the end. I'm sorry, this just takes the cake, and I think I know exactly why this gets on my nerves. Even if we ignore the logistics of it, you know, the dragon seeds arriving at Dragonstone in the morning and then all flying Silverwing around for about 700 to 800 miles on his very first ride, and the implications of Vhagar chasing him endlessly, and, you know, flying over an ongoing blockade, which begs the question of why Aemond didn't turn parts of it to toast while he's at it. This annoys me for the simple fact that it's all really only there to have that cool face-off at the end with Rhaenyra. That's how the scene was structured, literally built around it, and it's done in a way where you're not supposed to ask these questions, but I always do. You're supposed to ignore the distance between Dragonstone and King's Landing, and the reaction the show wants you to have is, wow, what a cool moment. It's spectacle for the sake of spectacle, and that's the kind of entertainment I personally despise. This felt so much like late Game of Thrones. And look, at the end of the day, I'm not trying to take away from your enjoyment of the show. If it continues on this path, you won't see me setting up a mic and a camera to talk about this for too long anyway. I had a fan page on Instagram back when Game of Thrones aired. When I didn't like it anymore, I just focused on the books and cherry-picked topics that I thought were worth talking about. If House of the Dragon continues on this path, I'll do that again. I'm always open to be wrong. I hope I'm wrong. But I gave them a lot of praise this season. Moments like this directly contradict what I was making them out to be, and I'll completely re-evaluate everything I said after the season ends. I give House of the Dragon Season 2 Episode 7 a 5 out of 10. What did you think about this episode? Am I too harsh? Did you like it, and why? Leave it down below so we can have a discussion. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys later.